Very good.
For you there, if you want to step up to the tip. Thank you, sir.
Perfect.
Hey Adam, with the new NHL rules, with more of a balanced schedule, Rangers playing the Islanders only 3 times during the season, what does that do to the rivalry?
That's a good question. For me, I think it's one of the special rivalries in sport, not just hockey, and always looked forward to. And when I think back to the days of going to the Coliseum and certainly at the Garden, I think it brought the best out in both teams, and especially when both teams, including the Devils in the tri-state area, when they're great, it just makes for great hockey for the fans. And I know as a fan now, anytime the Rangers are playing the Islanders, I always get excited and I want to watch that and certainly follow all 3 teams. Although I don't miss a game for the Rangers, I follow the other teams. And whether it's 2 games, 3 games, 4 games, or 6 games, every game is so important to the fan base. And that's why a day like today, where we're playing against the Islander, alumni, and we do have players that have played for both teams. I think it's a celebration. I'm not sure that the fans at the end of the game love it when because we're all buddies now and we're hugging each other and they're used to us wrestling and back in the day. But that's a special part of the game. It's that underlying respect, and that and I think hockey is such a big family. And when you're at an event like this, it's a celebration of that.
What's it like to do this all for a good cause, raising $50,000 for mental health?
Well, Northwell is on a daily basis with all their hospitals and facilities that take care of all our families in the tri-state area. You think of, when you think of Northwell, you just think of over the last 3 or 4 years. For me, the focus has been on what's most important, our health and our families, and certainly with Northwell is at the forefront of that, and with their leadership with Mr. Dowling and his foundation and their focus on kids and mental health, and I know they have an initiative with a pediatric behavioral initiative that they're doing with their foundation. It's just terrific. I'm a father of 3 kids, and there's nothing more important than our families, and to be able to, I think, support a foundation like that through hockey. And I love hockey, but it's a game. But it's what you can do with the game to really impact your community, and today is a perfect example of that.
You mentioned the excitement of Islander Ranger games, and in the past it didn't matter what the standings were, and come playoff time, obviously the 79 Rangers knocking off the top-seeded Islanders, but you had to beat the Islanders on the road to the Cup that year. What was that playoff series like, and what do you recall about that?
Yeah, that was a long time ago. Well, I quite frankly, I just remember always going, because and what I do remember about that year is we hadn't beat the Islanders in the Coliseum, and I don't know how many games it was, like probably close to 20 games, and I think we scored. Sergei Zubov might have scored it was the first time we beat him in Nassau, if I'm correct in my memory. But I just remember just how the energy, that's what you remember the most, the energy in both buildings, whether it was at Madison Square Garden or at Nassau Coliseum, when the 2 teams got together, and the Islanders always played us tough, as we always played the Islanders tough, and that's what makes for a great rivalry. And you look back to all the great Islander teams and certainly the great Ranger teams in that rivalry, and for me, it just, who benefits is the fans, and that's the best part.
Is it disappointing to have the Islanders and Rangers only play each other 3 games a year now? Would you like to see more?
Yeah, I will tell you this, that's really, I'm so focused on other things. That's not my area. There's obviously reasoning for that. But what I will tell you is when the teams do get together to play those 3 games or 4 games or whatever it is, I don't miss any of them. So, certainly moving forward, things are always changing. It might change where there might be more games, but that's, someone else makes that decision, so I'm not going to sit in judgment.
Mm-hmm. Is this upcoming game the highlight of the entire weekend for you, or would you say it was one of the other events?
Oh, that's the best part of hockey, and especially as you're an older guy. I mean, I was fortunate enough to play as long as I did, but I retired, 20 years ago. But to be able to still be playing a game that you love to play, and I say that, and it doesn't matter whether you're up in Canada or the U.S., I always treat it as a privilege. So when you get on the ice and you're able to play, so for argument's sake, yesterday we were on the ice with our junior Rangers kids at Madison Square Garden. For some of these kids that are 5, 6, 7 years old, and for them to have an opportunity like I'll never forget when I was a kid growing up in Toronto. I played at Maple Leaf Gardens when I was 9 years old. I still remember that opportunity. So yesterday, you have 6, 7, 8-year-olds with their mums and dads sitting up in the crowd, and then the Rangers came out for an open practice, and the energy in the building, we had 7, 8, maybe 10,000 people, I don't know exactly, but the energy was fantastic. And for me, it took me back to when we had open practice at Playland back in the day, and it'd be jammed up until the rafters. I don't know if any of you guys, people have ever went to those, but it was always a celebration. And for me, it took me back to when I was a player watching that open practice at the Garden.
Mm-hmm.
And you did play last April in the first Alumni Classic. Why are you excited for today's game to come back?
Well, it's terrific. I'll tell you, probably 10 minutes ago, I was talking to Caber, and we're good buddies from just, and respectfully, we didn't play on the same team together, but know him, we got to know him very well over the years. For me, that's the cool part. We were standing there talking, catching up on our families, and I think because of obviously what the world's gone through over the last 3 or 4 years, there's a lot of people you haven't seen, and it's just so good to catch up, and it's so good to get back to people, because that's what it's all about, and certainly getting on the ice, and hopefully this is something we do every year. It's not the fastest game in town, and I will tell you, but it's kind of fun when you see some of these players that are just that were playing and you were watching the last couple of years, like a Brian Boyle, and certainly I'm not sure if Boychuk's playing for them, but you look and you go, that guy just finished playing, and then you see someone like myself where I just like, oh, he's been retired for a while, so that's the fun part. But for me, it's just having everyone on the ice together, and certainly having other players from Northwell that are having that opportunity. Our goalie Jim Flanagan, who is a dear friend, and he will tell you, like, just a wonderful guy in the community. We do a 24-hour in the fall. An opportunity like this is special, and to see people being able to enjoy those opportunities, doesn't matter how old you are, it's fantastic.
Hockey-wise, what are you expecting out on the ice today?
Fun, yeah, fun. And you'll still see. I was just talking to Pierre Turgeon, and I mean, he looks like he can still play, and that's the great part, because and Alex Kovalev, another guy, and I told the story. We had an alumni game in Dallas a couple weeks ago, and I said that about Alex. I said I remember back in the 90s, we would play keep away after practice. There'd be a bunch of us, like 8 or 9, and it was really physical. We'd play for 10 minutes. Alex would have the puck on his stick for 9.5 minutes, and I said he still looks like he can do that. And you see that where people come to get the puck, even in that are non-pro, and he just put it back into his skate, and I mean, he could literally just keep it himself. So there's some guys, as I said, that look like Pierre's probably along the same vein, but there's so many good players, and once you get out there, you still see that skill, you still see that hockey intellect as well.
Speaking of 90s hockey, what are your thoughts on the fact that Jaromir Jagr is still playing in Russia and still scoring goals at 50?
Quite simply, one of the greatest to ever play the game. I was fortunate enough to watch him in New York, and I can remember that first full season where he had 54 and 100, and when he was on the ice, he had the puck on his stick at least half the shift every shift. He was so big and strong and skilled. His passion for the game, his love for the game, and being able to watch him and get to know him just a little bit, because for me, he's just one of the all-time greats, and someone that should be and will be celebrated for decades to come.
All right, thank you guys.